I was actually texting my auntie at the time, and I was saying, like, what would you do if a client had, was doing this, but it was about me. And I was saying, what would you do if a client was binging and then doing this and then this? And I was asking all
Right.
of the things that was happening with me, but, in a third person. When you start out, you're like chucking a load of money into your business in terms of like, well, at the time, I think you can sort of do it a little bit smarter now. But at the time, I was throwing a lot of money into my business in terms of like business coaches and branding and logos and websites that looked the fucking dog's bollocks and, shit that wasn't going to pay back, immediately. And, it was all of this, all these things that when I look back, wasn't really necessary. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
So
It's very common.
I was chucking a load of money into my business and wasn't seeing it back. And at the time, I was just like shit myself, and I was just in a really bad place in the relationship that I was in at the time, going through a shit time with that. And I just sort of lost a little bit of purpose, and I was obviously eating for comfort, and then so I would have had like binge eating disorder, and I would have had what you would deem or what you would call in the eating disorder world this non-purging bulimia. You wouldn't make yourself sick. You wouldn't be like, head over the toilet bowl or anything, but what you would do would say, for instance, I'll give you an example. So let's say I had a binge on a Friday night and I went way over my calories. I just ate and it wasn't nailed to the floor. I would like try and get to Monday without any food. So I'd be like, in my head, I'd be kind of going, okay, I've just binged my life away here. I'm going to try to get as far as I can without any food. And I would train, 3-4 times a day. I would do endless amounts of cardio,
Right.
trying to rectify that sort of caloric surplus. And that sort of became a really shit cycle of, essentially starving yourself. Then, coming to a weekend again, you'd binge and so on, so on, so on. So that sort of cycle came. And I think at my heaviest, I was close. I'd say I was tipping 130 kilos. And then sort of, I sort of got to the other end of the spectrum, and I sort of went, I suppose the other way, and ended up, I suppose, maybe in mid 70s, I'd say mid to
Yeah.
high 70s. And now for a lad of my sort of, when I say my build, but
Yeah.
like I'm genetically not prone to be that size. Do you know what I mean?
Okay.
If you had seen me at 70 odd kilos, you'd probably think I'm sick, or you think there's something wrong. So, so I've experienced both sides of the spectrum in terms of eating disorders, and neither made me happy.
And can I ask you, when that, it's interesting how that was kind of around the same period when your business started, but from that point when that kind of, those challenges in your life began, how long did they go on for? A few weeks, few months, or longer?
No. It was probably about maybe a year. I'd say a year to 18 months. And my auntie is actually a doctor in psychology, and she specializes in behavioral therapy. And I remember texting her loads. And actually, funny enough, I had this interview on News Talk last year, and it was funny because I had said it for the first time out loud, and I was just like, whoa, my auntie's actually going to hear this. And I'd never told her about it. So I was actually texting my auntie at the time, and I was saying, like, what would you do if a client had, was doing this, but it was about me. And I was saying, what would you do if a client was binging and then doing this and then this? And I was asking all of the things that was happening with me, but, in a third person, what would you do if this person was doing this and that person was doing that? Like, so it went on for about maybe a year or 18 months.